Hello, wrestling fans. My name's Adam Simmons. Thanks for joining me today here on the Wrestleline Report. I'm joined by former TNA superstar and superstar in the independent scene, Wildcat Chris Harris. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm great, man. Good to be here, Adam. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. Wildcat Chris Harris, you've had a long storied career. You started back around 1994. Is that correct? Whenever you
That's
first
right.
started,
Trained,
started.
trained and debuted in '94.
Okay. Started out like with around the Northern Wrestling Federation and that area, uh, and then kind of branched out throughout the Midwest, coming through to Indianapolis and Kentucky, those sorts of areas.
Yeah. I started with the NWF about '95, and then started working for them for consistently for a while. But yeah, we were branching out this whole area, whether it's Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, Tennessee. All over this kind of area.
Whenever you first got into the business, what kind of drew you in? Was there any particular superstar that you grew up with idolizing that you were just like that that is what I want in the future?
Well, like a lot of guys in my generation, I grew up as a fan. I was the kid watching on Saturday mornings. That's kind of what drew me in. I didn't have a friend or anybody that told me to watch it or anything. It's something that caught my eye, and it just hooked me. And then just seeing these superstars out there doing their thing, and then the one that caught my eye, and I don't even know if it's a like I wanted to be like him, although I did wind up doing similarities of him. But the superstar that stood out to me that was like a superhero was Macho Man Randy Savage. I just thought I loved his wrestling, but I loved the character, and no one can ever be another Randy Savage. But he's the one that caught my eye. A lot of people they're a Hogan guy or a Warrior guy. I mean, I was none of that. I was a Savage guy. And so it wasn't particularly him. He's the one that got me to watch wrestling. But the one that actually hooked me to where it's like, man, this is the coolest thing ever was, and I know a lot of people have this same opinion, but uh, him with Ricky Steamboat, WrestleMania 3. When I saw that match, and the match was incredible, but the way the people reacted to it, that's what really hooked me. And then from then on, it was like, I was still young, but I was like, this is something I would really like to, kind of follow a little bit. But I still had my schooling to do, and it was nothing I could really take serious just yet. But I was hooked on wrestling, man. I had to watch it. I was watching it all the time.
I hear you. And for me too, Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat match, WrestleMania 3, obviously, one of my favorite matches of all time. Macho Man, one of my favorites of all time as well. So very interesting to hear that. So you would start out there, and then you actually did have some matches with the WWE in the mid 90s as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in '96. So the place I actually started training with before I wound up with the Northern Wrestling Federation in Kentucky, it was up in Ohio, and um, I started my training there, and they were the ones that kind of had the hookup for that for being enhancement talent for the WWF. It was kind of like anytime the WWF was in, I don't even want to say that this area, but just this side of the country. They would get a call and send some guys up, and Enhancement up there was it was pretty much a squash match. So it was an opportunity, and that was in '96. I had really only been wrestling less than 2 years, so I was nowhere ready to make any kind of a jump or expect to even get noticed. But I thought it was a great experience to go, kind of see it with my own eyes, what big time's like. And I had two matches, one with Farouk and one with Bradshaw. So I guess they had something in common of beating me up, so they decided to team up.
Sure, sure. Um, so after you had that experience, you would, if I'm not mistaken, you signed with WCW with a developmental deal. Is that correct? Few years later, like around '99.
Like the end of '99, I got the contact with WCW. I'd been, like I said, I was all over the place, but I wound up wrestling a lot in Nashville for a promoter named Burt Prentice, and he had the contact with Terry Taylor in WCW. And so there was a group of us that were brought in to do security a lot of times, mainly for the Nitro and Thunder shows, but then the WCW Saturday night show, and then the WCW Worldwide, which is on Sundays. They were giving us some matches, and we were there. It's still considered enhancement. We were there to make the stars look good, but this was very different because they were giving us competitive matches, so we were able to show a little bit of what we had. And and at that time, I mean, I think they still had an idea of they were looking for new stars, but this was in the year 2000, so I think the writing was already on the wall in 2000. So I didn't really know what was going on behind the scenes, but yeah, it was chaos. So they were still looking for new talent, I guess, just in case. But yeah, I had some really great matches there, and obviously I got their attention because in October of 2000 is when they offered me a contract, and it wasn't a developmental contract; it was a full-fledged contract. So I was one of those very few that was offered a contract. And when growing up in the time that I did, the big two was WWF and WCW. So if you made it there, you made it, and so it was such an accomplishment at the time. But then for it to 6 months later go out of business or get bought, it was like you got to be kidding me. You're just deflated after that. So yeah, that was crushing, but I was very happy. I mean, I was very proud and still proud that even though the company was going downhill, they still saw enough in me to sign me to a contract.
Sure. During that time that you were there with WCW, are there some names that stick out who were kind of pivotal or kind of influential during your time there in the company?
Well, I mean, the first names that come to mind are the guys I actually stepped in the ring with. Not that I was close to those guys, but it's working with some of these stars. It does nothing but make you better. So, and I'm still in the learning process. But yeah, starting with my first match was with Booker T. And he took care of me in there, and I was there to make him look good, but he gave me enough to where I didn't look like shit. But I got to work with a lot of the stars, Kurt Hennig, Shane Douglas, Rey Mysterio. So there were a lot of big names in the business, and then I got to work with a lot of the guys that they were already starting to bring in, such as Jindrak, O'Hare, the names like that from the power plant days. Those were some of the names they were bringing in. Elix Skipper. I actually got to work with Elix in WCW before any of our TNA wars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it starts with a lot of those names, but there were so many influential people there because there was a group that they were still concentrating while everything was going on at the top of the card. They were still concentrating a lot on the younger guys, and the people that were in charge of those shows. Jimmy Hart was one of them, and the commentating team was Mike Tenay and Scott Hudson. they were all just so cool because they were looking to build something. And even on commentary, those guys would put us over to where we could pull off an upset, something like that. And so I've always loved Scott Hudson and Mike Tenay, and of course I have history with them both in TNA, especially Mike. But I've always had a great relationship with Jimmy Hart too. He was there trying to push those matches and putting them together. And then some of the guys I got close to on the road, Shannon Moore and Shane Helms. I got close to those guys. That was really cool. Even rode with them a couple times. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of guys that were really cool then, and I obviously didn't mix with the higher guys, but yeah, I mean, just a lot of people that were influential to me there.
Very cool. Very cool. And I guess it would have been around this time as well that I personally would start to learn about you outside of a mainstream wrestling presence, as here in the Indianapolis area, you came through a lot for a promotion called ICW, Interstate Championship Wrestling, which at that time, Prince Justice, you, Von Rob Williams, Dozer, among others, were involved with. And to those unaware, Prince Justice also goes by Abyss. But it was at this time that I spotted you and thought you definitely had a big stage feel, big main event feel. Me and Rob Kincaid would eventually bring you and Rob Williams and Dozer into FXW/FEW later on. And then after that time, it was around 2001, 2002, that you would get started with TNA, correct?
Yeah, it was 2002 is when TNA started, June of 2002.
So you and James Storm, had you guys worked together very much prior to you being teamed up in TNA?
Well, I'll first mention the promotion that you were talking about at Indy, because those guys, I mean, those were my road partners and good friends and for life. We loved each other, and like I said, we all traveled around all over the place. And but it was, yeah, we had a lot of fun in Indianapolis. Wherever we were working, we were together, and yeah, we had a lot of fun doing stuff up there and doing the promotion. So it was great to meet guys such as yourself, and getting to have some fun working with each other. But yeah, back to the TNA. So Storm, I had been in Nashville for a little bit in '99, and working there, hoping that would give me an opportunity, which led to WCW. But turns out it also kind of led to TNA because I was working down there so much, and I was one of the top baby faces. Storm is actually also a top baby face, and but we worked together quite a few times. I mean, a lot of people didn't realize that, but we had battled many times in that area. So those fans all saw us go at it, and then TNA comes along, and of course we looked at it as a great opportunity. We were dead set on trying to make something there. They were happy with us. They saw talent. We knew Jeff Jarrett from WCW. Actually, I think Storm had known him sooner than that. But yeah, so they signed us both. And starting a company, there's just so many things going on. You got to take care of the star talent, the names that are going to bring the eyes to the product. But you also have to build your new stars. And I think that we were kind of in that category. They knew they wanted to do something with us. They just wasn't sure what. So rather than get lost in the shuffle, they just were kind of like, hey, let's just put them together and see what happens. And so it was kind of just a random, throw them together, put them in a tag team, and we'll get them in some tag team matches. But Storm and I, being hungry and wanting to do something, we just kind of took it like, okay, this is how wrestling works, and if this is what they're going to throw at you, then him and I would both, but even though we thought about, our whole career we'd been in singles, but we thought, if this is what they're going to give us, if they want us in a tag team, then we're gonna be the best damn tag team out there. And so we were just gung ho on this whole thing, trying determined to make it work.
Sure. And that actually was one of my thoughts whenever I saw you show up in TNA as a tag team wrestler, because I had known you for so long as a singles wrestler, and that's where I thought you really shined, was as a singles wrestler. But then here you are with James Storm and America's Most Wanted in TNA, and what do you know? You guys really hit it out of the park with that tag team.
Yeah. Sorry about the interruption.
Oh, you're fine.
My dog sees something and gets loud. Yeah, I mean, ever since I started in '95, everywhere I went, I was a singles, and that's how I was kind of promoted on the card, as one of the top singles guys. And if there were titles involved, I was always in the title picture, and so that was just kind of my mentality. So yeah, going into TNA, that's what I want to do. I mean, even in WCW, I was in mostly singles matches. So it's Storm, same thing. I mean, he had been around that the Nashville area, and he was the big singles babyface around there. So going into it, yeah, it's. But it kind of goes back to, I mean, maybe this is just because of all the years I've been in it now, but that's just how things work. Whether it's a gimmick that's thrown on you that you have to run with, because that's what's been given you. You can either fight it or you can run with it, and your chances of doing something in the wrestling business is much better if you just accept it and kind of run with it. So him and I had a talk, and I don't remember the exact words, but we were both like, hey, this is what they're giving us. So rather than get lost in the shuffle in singles, which is, there's a good chance we could have done, because brand new company, they want names out there to do things, and there's only so many young guys they're going to get behind, and number one on their list was AJ Styles, and rightfully so. But who knows if I'd have been another AJ, so rather than get lost in the shuffle, it was just kind of like Storm and I was like, let's just do this. Let's make this work. And he and I grew up on the same tag teams. We watched the Rock and Roll Express and the Horsemen, the Midnight Express, the Road Warriors, the Hart Foundation, Bulldogs. I mean, all these great tag teams of the 80s and early 90s that we watched. We just kind of took what we thought good tag team wrestling was, and what we had been taught, and we just applied that to our matches. And I've always said, I think a lot of the reason it worked so well in 2002 for us, because we were getting a lot of attention in the whole wrestling world. The tag team kind of had a resurgence in the late 90s, with the Attitude Era, and the guys like Edge and Christian, the Hardys and the Dudleys. I mean, they were doing phenomenal tag team things. But then once that kind of settled off, the WWF just kind of got into I don't know, just a habit of, they would take two of their top singles guys, throw them together in a tag team, and they'd run them for a few months, and a lot of times that would include a title reign. They'd win the titles, they'd lose the titles, they'd break up, then they'd feud. And there was just, it wasn't the art of tag team wrestling anymore. And so when we came around, people had been missing that for a few years. So they took a look at us, and we tried to capture that emotion, capture that, get you emotionally invested in a tag team match. Because I've always said, I mean, not taking anything away from singles matches, but with a tag team match, you have double the action out there. So you can capture people into a tag team match if you really do it well and know how to capture that. And that's what we were doing. So people were really getting into our matches and getting behind us and seeing that, wow, these are great tag team matches, and these guys know how to work. And, we had that connection with the fans too. So that was working for us as well. So yeah, we were determined, man. And we went out there and did everything that we thought that, we knew about tag team wrestling. Of course, we were still learning, and we're going to continue to learn for years, but it was working at the time, man. 2002, they were ready for a good tag team to be on the scene.
And do you think that it's safe to say that during that period of time in TNA, that America's Most Wanted and Triple X, Elix Skipper, Christopher Daniels, who else was in that group? Escapes me.
Low-key.
Low-key, of course. How disrespectful for me to forget that. Is it
Don't let
safe?
him find out.
Huh?
Don't let Low-key find out.
Yeah, no kidding.
He can give some stiff kicks.
But do you think it's safe to say that America's Most Wanted and Triple X, the two of you kind of defined that era of tag team wrestling in TNA?
Yeah, and I think the fans would agree with that. We were definitely at the top of our game. And then you put those guys together, any two of the three of them, and we were having such great quality matches. Now we had some great matches with others as well, but that seemed to be what really got the attention of people. I remember us doing like the best of 5 series, which led to the cage match, which kind of gets overshadowed because of the 6 sides of steel a few years later. But we had an incredible cage match at the Asylum back in 04, or that might have been 03. I can't remember. But yeah, our matches with them. I mean, we had been through the new church. We had some incredible matches with them. I have to bring up Simon Diamond, Johnny Swinger. Incredible matches with those guys. The Naturals, we took that feud on the road. We were all over the country wrestling those guys. But yeah, I think a lot of the attention was on when we finally hunkered down with Triple X and started really battling it out with those guys. And that's a lot of what people remember.
For sure. And, I think part of it too was you guys both had like this homegrown feel. There was tag teams that had maybe bigger established names in them, but America's Most Wanted and Triple X, it was like those were the homegrown TNA tag teams, and of course the Naturals as well. So I think that may have had something to do with the buy-in from the fans on you guys' side.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, all of us were looking to make a name for ourselves, and whatever was going to do it. I think the same with let's say all 3 of those guys. I'm sure they walked in thinking that they were going to make a knock on the singles division. Most notably, those 3 probably the X division, because they all 3 wrestled for the X division. But then you take 3 X division wrestlers and put them in a combo like that, and it's pure magic. So all 3 of those guys could go. And Chris Daniels, can't say enough about him. I mean, he to me, he was kind of like the leader there. He's a true ring general. I noticed that, every time I stepped in the ring with him. But the other 2, Elix is just an incredible athlete. And he's willing to take risks. He's willing to do things that we had never seen at that time before. And he's so athletic. Low key, he's one of those guys, and the drive of that guy in such in a smaller frame, he'll take your head off. But he may not look like much, although he does have that mean face that will intimidate you. But he'll get in there and he'll fight with the big dogs. So yeah, those 3, they were out to make it themselves. And And by that time, we were making a name as probably the best tag team in TNA at the time. So, yeah, you make magic when you're all on the same page and you put it together, and we all worked well with each other.
And work well together. You all did, if I'm going to say so myself. So you mentioned Triple X, Alex Skipper, Low Key. Um, and then after you guys' tag team run, which you guys, I think you got the tag titles, was it 6 times with James Storm, once with Alex Skipper?
That's correct. Yeah.
Um, so I think there was probably a transition period there in TNA where, especially with James Storm, I think he had been out a couple times with was a shoulder injury,
Yeah.
where it kind of left you wrestling some singles matches or tag teaming, like with Elix Skipper, which kind of left an opening there for them to explore booking you more in singles matches. So some of these people that you would work with in that singles run, Dustin Rhodes, Booker T, Christian Cage. Uh, what are some of your thoughts on that period of time where you started to kind of wrestle more in a singles role?
Well, those were actually two different times. Storm had a shoulder injury in the earlier days when when I went into singles. Then he was kind of behind me, to help and push me. But that's when I got to run with guys like AJ and Raven, Ron Killings, which is R-Truth, and then that led me to a title match with Jeff Jarrett. So that singles run was incredible because it even though I was still in a tag team, it just gave me the confidence to know I could still run. And hey, this is that singles journey that I was looking to do. And Jeff and I main evented a pay-per-view. So, it was showing that it was working because the people were 100% solid behind me, and they thought I was going to beat Jeff for the NWA championship. So that was incredible right then. But then with the transition, that was about the time we were going to Fox Sports. So going to a new the TV division, and that's what we were going to do. The TVs, do regular TV, and then the pay-per-views once a month. So they wanted all their players in their best positions, which is Jeff at the top. AJ went back to the X division, even though he had been wrestling for the heavyweight title. He was the X division champion, and then Storm and I got back together and we won the tag team titles. So that way you have all your best players in place for that. And that took us to Fox Sports. Obviously, a couple years later, that led to Spike TV. But the names that you mentioned that I wrestled, that was actually once AMW was split. Once we split up. So I didn't know which one you were asking about, but same thing. Even then, that once we said goodbye to the tag team, and Storm and I, went months beating the hell out of each other. Then it was time to see what we could do in singles, and yeah, I mean, I got to wrestle some incredible names. Just so talented. The three you just mentioned, but by that time, we had some of the homegrown stars. So you can add Kurt Angle to that mix. He was in there about that time. And in my book, you just can't get better athlete or wrestler to be in the ring with. But also AJ had come up. I was wrestling AJ. I was wrestling, with Samoa Joe. You mentioned Christian. So it was incredible. I honestly, at the time, I couldn't wait to see where I was going to go. And I think my first, other than Christian, my first, the next program I was with Dustin. And, he kind of was experimenting with the new Black Rain character. So, but yeah, I'd known Dustin. We had actually teamed up with him and Dusty in the earlier days of TNA. So yeah, it was great to be able to work with him too, man. But yeah, I enjoyed both those singles runs, and I was really looking forward to what was going to happen in the future.
And so after you had that singles run in TNA, your TNA contract would actually come to an end in 2008. And it's during this period of time that you go to WWE and take on a new name, Braden Walker.
Yep.
Do you care to touch on that a little bit, that period of time?
Yeah. So, a lot of decisions went, or a lot of different ideas went into making that decision, but that's what I chose. I decided to venture and see what I could do on the other side, um, and they seemed to be happy with it at first. It sounded they made it sound great, and that they were happy to have me, and that lasted for probably a number of weeks, and then from then on, it just started going downhill. There just was no preparation in creating something here. I don't know. I mean, it's hard. I can only speak on what I saw and experienced, but yeah, there wasn't any thought put into to me, or my look, or my name, or music, or character, or just anything like that. But I went in with I tried to go in with a really good attitude, because I know for all these years, people have kind of they've put down the name, and they've put down the look, and just different things like that. But going into it, I knew that there was going to be a change. I mean, that's just how the WWE works. So I never did I expect to walk in there, with Wildcat on my trunks, and my AMW jacket, and be Wildcat Chris Harris. I knew enough to know that that wasn't going to happen. So when whatever the process was to get the Braden Walker, that didn't bother me. Whatever name they threw at me, I was determined I was going to make it work. So that part actually didn't bother me. I think fans are surprised to hear that. I knew that I was going to have a different look. Whatever that case was, I was determined to make that work. But certain things that are not in my control, they were not. They just weren't helping. There was no preparation at all, other than that horrible pre-tape that we did, that I did with Teddy Long and Armando, that aired. That was, the verbiage was just horrible. They were changing it as we were going it, as we were filming. We do one take, and then they say, well, then now say this. I'd say that. And they say, well, why don't you say this? And so they just kept changing it. So it just kind of proved to me that there was no thought going into this, of who I am, what I'm saying. So it was just so blah. And I go out in plain black, and my name's Braden Walker. So it's as a package, it just came off so bland. The music was horrible. So you send Braden Walker out there, no background. They don't know who this guy is. Some may recognize me, most probably don't. So we got to give the people a reason to care about this guy. So when I walk out there, it's just it's nothing. And I always felt that once I got in the ring, yeah, I could take care of that. And I no matter what was going on the outside, I could take care of myself in the ring. But they were even taking that away. Like every one of my main moves, any of my highlight moves, they were taking away because it was too similar to some of their guys there. So there were so many different moves that I couldn't do. I'm talking a number of them. And I mean, I'll just give you one example. I'll just take what I was using as a finisher in TNA, the catatonic. That was a very similar move to what Umaga was doing. Umaga was a big star at the time. And so I tried to do the professional thing, and because they in my first match, I was going to win, and so naturally I wanted to win with my finisher and try to get that established. But I went to him and talked to him, and him and I have gotten along. He actually spent some time in TNA, so I knew had a prior history with him, but he didn't take to it too kindly, and um, so I got the feeling that, walking out of that conversation, that okay, I probably would be a dumbass and have a lot of heat on me if I went ahead and did it, or I can just try to play by the rules and the whole do what I'm told kind of thing. So so right from the get go, my one of my best moves was taken away from me, and that happened for a lot of them. So even my move set, even what I'm so natural at in the ring, and I felt like I was a pretty good worker, and I could show them what I had in the ring, no matter what the name is or the look is or the music is or anything like that. And it just wasn't coming off like that. I mean, I just felt like everything was working against me. The machine, we would call, I would call it, just wasn't behind me. And if the machine isn't going to get behind you, then it makes it really hard. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it makes it really hard to fight that battle and to break through that. So that's kind of what I was going through, and it was quickly going downhill as the more days I spent there.
So whenever you went over the character Braden Walker, what is it that you envision in your mind that this character is, their personality, just kind of take us on the journey of who you envision this character being at that time.
Well, I mean, there wasn't much talk to that. I had spent in Stanford, at the headquarters. I had spent at least a couple hours with a group of writers up there, where they pretty much opened the door to me, wanted my history, and I knew going into the WWE that I better keep my mouth shut about TNA, because let's be honest, WWE didn't give a shit where I came from. They don't care about your history. So I would just dug my own grave had I gone in there with my head held high, saying, "Hey, I did this and I did that." That's definitely a no-no. So I did not do that. However, in the writers' room, they were asking me about my career, so I was telling them, and that obviously showing the highlights. And so I thought that I was kind of giving them part of me, and in turn, because they're the creative team, they would kind of have an idea of, okay, how can we make this work? How can we make this important and interesting? So I don't want to say I really had a character for Braden Walker. I mean, that Braden Walker was decided that day. That's how much preparation went into that. One of the things I did give them that was something different. I went to them with a whole different idea, and I said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I had pictures to show them of something that we could do, and kind of an idea for a gimmick. And they seemed to be like, "Okay, we'll listen to you," but I don't know if they just didn't laugh. I mean, it just didn't go anywhere. So, but there was even a time where they saw the look that I had with the jacket. The everybody always loved those AMW jackets, those long leather jackets. So they actually wanted to see them. So one of the TVs, I brought my jacket to show them, and they were like, "Yeah, that's badass. That's cool. Maybe we can do something with that." And which I was all for, because I like that look too. So maybe get another jacket made or something. And by the next TV, I asked them about it. I think I brought it again. And I asked them about it. I said, "Yeah." They said, "No, we're going to go a different direction." So yeah, there was just nothing to it. I could have made Braden Walker anything that I wanted, once that was given to me. But I just needed, I need, it's a $1 billion company. I need them to be behind me, and then give me what your ideas are, and then let me produce it. Let me make it happen. So yeah, we really just didn't even, I don't feel like we even got that far, because every time there was any talk of creative, it didn't go anywhere. So, and that proved it to me, because once, you would think once they put you on their TV, I mean, I feel like TV time is valuable. For them to put me on their TV, that's a big deal to me. So, but to put me out there as generic as it was, I almost want to look at it and be like, what do you expect? I mean, nobody's going to care. And just I'll try to say this real quick, but just to give you some idea, Ron Killings and I, who is R-Truth, we went from TNA to WWE at the same time. We even traveled together, you know, on our first trip to Stanford. He was there that same day. I met with the writers. He met with the writers. Um, when he debuted, now let's remember he had also been there before, so maybe they didn't necessarily think of him as a TNA guy. I don't know, but when he debuted, you know, they changed up his name a little bit. R-Truth. Hey, he made it work. I mean, God, let's. I can't say enough great things about Ron R-Truth because this was 15 years ago for me. That means he's been there for 15 years and he's still going. Still looks great. I still think they can make something out of him. And he's just entertaining every time that light comes on the camera. He's entertaining to everybody. So, but when he first came out, they had sent a camera crew to his home in North Carolina, and they were doing some packages leading up to his debut, where they were kind of showing how he grew up and coming up on the streets and just giving a little bit of his background. And then when he came out, he's, you know, I could never do this, but he his music was his music. It was his rap music that he had put together. So obviously he had permission to use it. So that added to the character a little bit, you know, him going out and doing the what's up kind of thing, you know, very creative for him. I give him so much credit for that. But when he came out, it was something that the people could get into, and they saw some of the background of him. So it's like, you know, hey, let's see what this guy does. You know, so it was just so much different than what I had. And I don't know, maybe I am a little jealous of it, but I'm just showing you two examples. We go in at the same time, and what they got behind for one thing, and then what they didn't get behind for the other. And it just that's just how it works. So yeah, I just wasn't as lucky in that sense. And you know, maybe they saw more in him than they saw in me. I'm not sure, but yeah, they never got behind me. And so I was kind of fighting a uphill battle.
So after your time was done in WWE, you've actually gone back to Impact Wrestling since then, correct?
Well, I've been back several times, but yeah, a couple years later, yeah, there was an opportunity to go in, and I was teaming up with Matt Hardy, and we were going to go against Beer Money. We did that a few times, and that even happened on a pay-per-view. Yeah, I was very excited to be back. I think I really needed it. I needed that wrestling back in my life again because you know, after WWE, it yeah, just things kept falling in my life. So that really helped out that I was getting a chance again, and I had gotten to talk with Terry Taylor and Vince Russo and Jeff, and there were some ideas to go forward that they had talked to me about. So I was really excited about it. But yeah, I did a few appearances, and then that was it. So I'm not sure really what happened. I never really got many answers. And never had a chance to really ask either. But you know, that's how wrestling works. You know, they put something out there and then they can quickly change direction. So yeah, I was a little disappointed in that time. But then years later, just a couple years ago, well, actually, it was last year. I got to do a little bit with them, which was I loved being able to do something with that. You know, they brought Storm in. We did something together, and they actually talked me into another match. So we did a match, and it was just great. The whole story was great. I enjoyed being back there. It was great. You know, doing it with Storm. Him and I had been, you know, kept in touch the whole time. We've been close over the years, but to actually go in and be able to do something like that was really cool. So so yeah, that I was real happy with that.
So what has Chris Harris's journey looked like over the last few years. For those who have been wondering what happened to Wildcat Chris Harris, I know I was one of those. You've always been one of my favorites. I was always rooting for you, to make it big. So I know there's other people like me out there that are just curious what you've been up to the last few years.
Yeah, the last few years have been great. I did go through a period where I wasn't doing a whole lot in the business. Um, there was a lot of personal issues going on, so I just kind of had to get myself back on track. But over the last several years, um, I got my head back into the game again. I'm doing a lot on the local scene back with the Northern Wrestling Federation. So I really loved that I moved back to the area, and and now it was time where I could get back in there. And I did wrestle for a little bit, but my true passion now is just to help the younger generation. So I'm hands on with their training, their coaching, and then I'm helping Roger Ruffin out, actually running the shows. We're working every single weekend doing something. So it's a very busy promotion. We got a great group of guys, so that keeps me busy in itself. But I'm also doing appearances. So I have a lot of people that ask me about wrestling, and I kind of tell them that, hey, in my book, you never say retire in wrestling. So I've never said that I retired. But yeah, I really avoid having matches. But I do appearances all the times, and a lot of times maybe they might just be autograph sessions, but they also may be a show, an event sometime. And a lot of times I don't mind getting involved with matches. I just don't do them myself. So yeah, I still stay busy doing that. Conventions are very popular now. I love that those exist because we get to go in and sign autographs and take pictures, and we don't have to get beat up. So that's always nice.
Right.
So I really enjoy that, and plus, and I think a lot of the guys would say this. The conventions are so nice because we get to kind of reconnect with a lot of our peers, guys that we've either worked with or just haven't seen in a long time. And it's just really great to catch up with them. And some I've never met, so I get to talk to them for the first time and meet them. So just real cool journey that's going on. So I'm doing really good. I'm still, having my name out there and still trying to have some fun and doing shows here and there, doing appearances here and there, and then staying very busy on the local scene. Trying to get these younger guys to go out and make some great money and become huge superstars in the world of wrestling.
Chris, do you have a website that you can share where people can check out any merchandise or anything that you have going on?
Yeah, I usually tell them the best way to get a hold of me is either Twitter or Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. My Twitter is at AMW Wildcat. My Instagram is at AMW Wildcat Chris Harris. But any of those ways you want to get a hold of me, I do have merchandise that I usually carry with me. But if you can't get me in person, then get a hold of me if you're interested. And yeah, I do have a website, and but also for appearances. If you're ever looking to do anything or podcasts, anything like that, please get a hold of me and we'll work something out. So yeah, I try to stay very active. So I love getting out there and love when people are interested in my story. There's a lot that goes into it. So very interesting story.
Well, before we got started, before I hit record, I was asking you what some of that stuff was behind you on your wall. I'm sure people would love to hear what some of that stuff is behind you
All
there.
right. I might have to look myself. Well, this right here, I don't know how much of that you can see, but that's my NWA tag team title that I had with Storm. We had it 6 times. Held it 7, so that's my prized possession there. But other than that, I have some old posters from earlier days. That was the wrestling posters back in the day. Nope, we didn't have pictures back then. So, well, I'm sure there were, but um, that was very common to have that. This back here, I have a few pictures of Storm and I, but this was one with Bob Ryder, who was very instrumental in number one putting us together. But he was very important with the growth of TNA. He was with TNA and Impact up until the day he died. So that's very precious to me. Got my buddy Kurt Hennig, who's a good friend of mine and one of the guys I looked up to before I even met him. So to be able to share some time with him and get close with him was really cool. I got to wrestling twice. Um, uh, there's one up here. I'm not sure if that's actually a shot of when I was Sting in WCW. It
Oh
was a
wow.
match between Sting and Jeff Jarrett, and I kind of popped up from the ring and dressed as Sting to kind of lure him away. So that was a real cool moment. But I also have some different posters. I have some magazine articles that like a PWI or something like that would have done on Storm and I that I've framed. So yeah, just a lot of things I'm really proud of up here. And I just I like remembering that kind of thing. Not don't want to forget about it because you never know when your last day is here. So I love knowing that I had a lot of accomplishments. A lot of people will remember the WWE fiasco, but I came out better on the other side. So it was a down time for me, but it was okay. And I'm really proud of my career. You know I I've had a great career. I mean, I know a lot of people. There's a lot of wrestlers out there that would give anything to have even what I had. So I had a real good, at least full time. I had a real good 10-year run. And now I've almost been in the business 30 years. So it's been great, and I'm happy. I got a really good life now with my wife, my dogs, and I'm still in wrestling. So I always consider myself coming out much better on the other side.
Wildcat Chris Harris, want to thank you once again for taking the time to talk with us here today.
I appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for having me, man. It was fun talking to you and fun kind of reminiscing about the Indianapolis days.
Yeah, for sure. All
Thanks for
right.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll check you out next time.